can start, Sanket. You can share the screen now.
Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yep, it is. On I see used Beamer.
Okay, myself Sanket Thakre, and I'm student of Ferguson College. I'm doing my third year BSc. And my partner is Gaurav Narkade. He is from Modern College Pune, but he is having his mid-sem exam, so he will not be present. So I will be presenting our project. So our project title is Can Continuum Hypothesis Be Proved? So let me just introduce you to the continuum hypothesis. What is the formal statement of continuum hypothesis? So this hypothesis says that there is no infinite cardinal between aleph naught. So the symbol here is aleph naught and continuum, and there does not exist any set X has more potential than that of natural number, but has less potential than that of our set of natural numbers. This term, some of the terms might be new to you, so I will explain all of them. So what is if not continuum, and what is the power set, and all these terms I will explain you. So the to understand the hypothesis, let me introduce you to the basic mathematical terms related to the hypothesis. So the fundamental term here is the set. So what is set? And a set is the well-defined collection of a distinct object. And the modern study of set theory was initiated by Cantor and Richard. In particular, the Cantor is commonly considered as the founder of set theory. So this is the very fundamental thing we learned in our course of mathematics, the set. And we all know how we write down the set. We express it like this, that first here, the type of the object is natural. In this set, I have given the example that x is equal to x belongs to natural number such that x square is less than 20. So here the our type of object is natural numbers, and the rule of the collection is x square is less than 20. So you know what type of the objects will be there in this set. So this is the set, and we all know the definition and all the terms. So there are many properties related to set, the subset and all this, but these are not much necessary to the to know the continuum hypothesis. To the necessary one is the power set. So what is the power set? So power set is basically the collection of the subsets of the set. So any set, we take any set, then we collect all the subsets in particular set, and we name it as the power set of the that particular set. And also the in order to do the analysis, it is not particularly useful to just have the notion of set. We also need the notion of the function. So function is basically the relation. It's a relation between the two sets. So to to find the relation, to define the relation between the two sets, we use the function, and function assigns every element of a set to the element of another set. Suppose, and this is how we represent the function. So f from a to b, if we have, and where a is called the domain and codomain, these are the very basic things, the function and all this, we all know this. So there then for particularly for the sets, to compare the cardinality of two different sets, we use this one and onto functions. So there are different types of function, but one and onto are of special types in which we use the which set is bigger. If you want to know that this set is bigger than other set, and this one set is lesser than other set, then we use the one and onto function there. So one function can be defined like this, if f of x, and this is all just mathematical representation. But what one function says, that if images of two different objects are same, then the elements are also the same. This is what one function says. And Also the if from set like here if A to B, so if we cannot define one function from A to B, then we say that A has more potential than that of B. It means A has more elements than that of B. And also onto function can be defined as this is mathematical expression, but what it says is if every element of codomain have pre-image, then we say that the function is onto. Also, to compare the potential of two sets, onto function, what we say in onto function that if from x to y onto function is not defined, then we say that y has more elements than that of x. This onto function is very useful in continuum hypothesis. The Cantor used this function to prove his theorem. So we will look into this. So I use the term cardinality. Cardinality is basically just the potential of the set, or more explicitly, we can say the cardinality of set is the measure of number of elements. So if I said the number of students in TYBSc or third year BSc in Ferguson College, then if suppose there are 50 students in that class, then we say the cardinality of that set is 50. So this is just the number of the elements in the set, and we use the term cardinality for that. So in continuum hypothesis also, this cardinality term is used. So I am defining this cardinality, what it means, and what the properties are there. Then it's obvious that we will have different kinds of sets having different cardinality. And for comparing two sets or to show two sets similar, the cardinality of set is much useful. Like I said that if one and onto function is not defined, then cardinality is cardinality of x and y. We can compare the cardinality. So in that sense, the of one and onto functions are much helpful. So the most general cardinalities we use the finite set and infinite set. So in finite set, if we can assign every element of the set to the Sn, like here Sn is 1 to up to n, then if we can assign like first term first cardinal, second term second cardinal, and all these nth term is nth cardinal, then we say that the set is finite. And for infinite set, if it is not finite, then we say that the our set is infinite. So examples like natural number, power set of natural number, these are the examples of infinite sets. And generalized continuum hypothesis implies that this strict stronger inequality holds for infinite cardinal as well as a finite cardinal. So we need to assign different terms to them. So in finite cardinals also, there are different infinite cardinals. We say that Sn, and for infinite cardinals, it is aleph naught. Aleph naught is the cardinality of natural numbers, and continuum here is the cardinality of power set of natural numbers. So these two terms are these two terms we will need in to understand the continuum hypothesis. So here the aleph naught is the cardinality of natural numbers, and continuum is the cardinality of power set of natural number. And then comes the Cantor theorem, on which the continuum hypothesis is based. The Cantor later proved that from any set A to the power set, we cannot define onto function. So which means that power set of A has more number of elements than the set A. This is for any set. For any set, we can define this relation, and Cantor proved that. And from this, the continuum hypothesis, the continuum hypothesis come into the picture. prove that the cardinal and detailed proof of this theorem is given in our paper. So I didn't mention this proof here. It will be more like mathematical class. So I just explained the formal statement. And Cantor believed this continuum hypothesis to be true for many years. So here the continuum hypothesis comes. Some mathematical problems may be extremely difficult and therefore without a solution up to now, but one day someone may come up with a brilliant solution. In 1940, Gödel's proved that the like our set theory is based on particular axioms, those 9 to 10 axioms, and on that the whole set theory is based, and it is, and on that axioms, based on that axioms, Gödel proved that it is impossible to tricect the angle. And also 20 years later, Covens proved that the axioms, all axioms are true, and continuum hypothesis cannot be proved from that. So all mathematicians are trying their best to prove this hypothesis, but this hypothesis is also like the Fermat's last theorem, for example, went unsolved for 3.5 centuries. But then Andrew Wiles was able to solve it in 1994. For example, the age-old trisection problem, as you might know, that can we trisect a given angle by using just a ruler and compass. But then later the Greek of the classical periods were very puzzled by how to make such a trisection, and no wonder, for in the 19th century it was proved that it is impossible, not just very difficult, but impossible to trisect the angle. So it was this simple, but you need very little to more than the ruler and compass to trisect an arbitrary angle. For example, a compass and a ruler with 2 marks on it. It was just that easy, but it took such a long time to answer the simple question, which was, can we trisect the given angle by just using a ruler and compass? And the but the continuum hypothesis is the problem of very different kind. We actually can prove it is impossible to solve it using the current methods, which is not completely unknown phenomenon in mathematics. It is not completely unknown phenomenon, like but we know that it is impossible to solve using the tools we have in set theory at the moment. And up until recently, nobody knew that what analog of a ruler with 2 marks on it would be the case. It was that easy. What it would like to go beyond set theoretic methods and suggest something new. So for to solve the continuum hypothesis based on the axioms, we cannot prove that continuum hypothesis is true. Also, on the other hand, it is not even proved that it is false. So mathematicians are all at the crossroads right now. They just they are crossroads, and there is a series of conjecture right now, and the key question is whether this conjecture can be proved or not. So the continuum hypothesis is one of the instance of infinite sequence of questions, and it makes no sense to answer the problem with a continuum hypothesis without having some global solution to the universe of set. So the problem is, what could this global solution be? So mathematicians are at crossroads. There is a series of concepts very present, as I told you, the axiomatic set. So to prove the continuum hypothesis, some scientists suggest that we need to add some axioms on which our set theory is based. So those axioms are like axioms of extensibility. So these are the axioms on which our set theory is based. But to prove that continuum hypothesis is true, we need to add some axioms to this set theory. And but our set theory is based on whole set theory is based on this axiom, and it's working fine. But we are not able to find the solution to the hypothesis, then it is we are not able to find the solution. It just states that we are not able to understand these axioms properly to solve the continuum hypothesis. Like if we add some axioms, then our idea of infinity will also be gone with the these axioms and continuum hypothesis. So these are just the two cases. Like if we add some axioms to this set theory, then we will prove that the continuum hypothesis is true. But on the other hand, we can say we don't understand these axioms properly, and we don't have the solutions for the continuum hypothesis. These are just the two cases, and this the day when the continuum hypothesis will be solved will be the remarkable event. So this is what our project is about.
Okay, Sanket, it was a nice presentation.
Thank you, all of you, for listening me. I don't know if I can convey the if I am able to convey this message or what I want to say, but this is the very incredible hypothesis. I don't know if I can explain this. So this is all I can try.
It was nice, Sanket. So first of all, audience, do you have any questions or any doubts regarding the presentation? Nobody. Okay then. So Vikrant, if you're here, can you give your comments? Like, how was it, Vikrant? He's also not here. Okay. Sanket, I have one doubt.
Okay,
yeah, Sanket, tell. Hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So in continuum hypothesis, when I was learning about that, I came to know that what are the methods in continuum hypothesis? I was lagging there. Like, for example, are there any papers which you have worked on? Like, I mean, like you have referred, or can you share your paper at least? I think you can share your paper now.
Okay.
I'm sure. How is it? Okay, guys. In the meantime, audience, you don't have any questions or any views? How was it? Anyone? Okay, so Asta says it was interesting. Sanket, are you sharing?
Yeah, just a minute.
Yeah. Okay, in the meantime, Asta and Anushka, in your team, who is sharing the screen?
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen.
Okay.
Okay, I will share my screen. Okay.
Okay, Anushka, 1 minute. Let Sanket share his paper.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, Sanket, go ahead.
Yeah, my screen is visible?
Yeah, it is visible. Yep.
We defined here properties also, the power set and the different function in detail. Multi-function, one function, which I just explained you, the cardinality. And Cantor's theorem here is the proof of Cantor theorem, what Cantor's actually want to say. This was the conference held in Princeton University based on the continuum hypothesis. And this is the...
Yeah, the paper looks nice and pretty, Sanket. So how many days have you worked for this paper? Like, was it weeks or days? What were the numbers?
A week. It takes a week to collect all the information on this.
Okay. So what are the references? Once again, can you show?
Most of the from Apostle book for the definition of function in real analysis books, and for the hypothesis we use the huge Wooden's continuum hypothesis. He has proposed 2 papers. For this time, the huge Wooden is doing incredible in this field. I mean, he's having the nice proofs for the hypothesis that it is false, not for the true, but for the false.
The paper looks really pretty, and yeah. So thanks, Ankit. So how was your experience in Nakshatra, working in the latex program? Was it nice?
It was nice. I learned so many things. All of you guys were also very helpful and very patient. I liked a lot.
Thank you, Sanket. Okay, then. So now we shall move forward. So Anushka, can you share your screen now?
Thank you, all of you.
Yes.
Hello, is my voice audible?
Yes.
Yeah, it is audible.
Good evening, everyone present over here. Myself, Astha Mahapatra, and Anushka Seth are going to present a small presentation over a project we made. The topic of our presentation is the future of artificial intelligence and Sanskrit as natural language processing. Next slide. Natural language processing is a subfield of artificial intelligence. It helps machines process and understand the human language so that they can automatically perform repetitive tasks. For example, machine translation, summarization, ticket classification, and spell check. For example, sentiment analysis, which uses natural language processing to detect emotions in text. This classification task is one of the most popular tasks of NLP, often used by businesses to automatically detect brand sentiment on social media. Analyzing these interactions can help brands detect urgent customer issues that they need to respond to right away or monitor overall customer satisfaction. So one of the main reasons natural language processing is so critical to businesses is that it can be used to analyze large volumes of text data, like social media comments, customer support tickets, online reviews, news reports, and etc. All this business data contains a wealth of valuable insights, and NLP can quickly help businesses discover what those insights are. It does this by helping machines make sense of human language in faster, more accurate, and more consistent way than human agents. Next slide. So now I'm going to explain about how NLP works. In natural language processing, human language is separated into fragments so that the grammatical structure of sentences and meaning of words can be analyzed and understood in context. This helps computers read and understand spoken or written text in the same way as humans. There are a few fundamental NLP pre-processing tasks data scientists need to perform before NLP tools can make sense of human language. So first is tokenization. Tokenization breaks down text into smaller semantic units or singular clauses. Second is POS tagging, part of speech tagging, marking of words as nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, etc. Third is stemming and lemmatization, standardizing words by reducing them to their root forms. And fourth is stop word removal. Stop word removal filters out common words that add little or no unique information. For example, prepositions and articles. Natural language processing enables you to perform a variety of tasks, from classifying text and extracting relevant pieces of data to translating text from one language to another and summarizing long pieces of content. Some examples of NLP are text classification. Text classification is one of the most basic NLP tasks and consists of assigning categories or tags to a text based on its content. Classification models can serve different purposes. For example, sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is a process of analyzing emotions within a text and classifying them as positive, negative, or neutral. By running sentiment analysis on social media posts, product reviews, or surveys, or customer feedback, businesses can gain valuable insights about how customers perceive their brand. Another is topic classification. Topic classification consists of identifying the main themes or topics within a text and assigning predefined tags. For training your topic classifier, you will need to be familiar with the data you're analyzing, so you can define relevant categories. For example, you might work for a software company and receive a lot of customer support tickets and that mention technical issues, usability, and feature requests in this case. So you might define your tags as bugs, feature requests, later requests, UX or IX. Another is intent detection. Intent detection consists of identifying the purpose, goal, or intention behind a text. It's an excellent way of sorting outbound sales, email responses by interested, need information, unsubscribe, bounce, etc. The tag interested could help you spot a potential sale opportunity too. So another example of NLP is text extraction, which consists of pulling out specific pieces of data that are already present in a text. It's a perfect way to automatically summarize text or find key information. The most common example of text extraction is keyword extraction. Keyword extraction automatically extracts the most important words and expressions within a text. This can provide you with a sort of preview of the content and its main topics without needing to reach each piece. So now I would hand over to Anushka.
English is widely used language for natural language processing, but there is need of other languages, native languages of India. We should think of such languages to use as natural language processing. Let's see some ambiguities of English language. So complex knowledge representation. Consider a sentence, Sita gave a pen to Ram. To understand meaning of this sentence, processor will have to identify which word is representing agent, recipient, time, object involved in this sentence. This becomes complex and difficult. On the other hand, Sanskrit shows a very easy knowledge representation. We just have to use divide and conquer rule. Consider the example, Shivaha Himalayam Gacchati. Its meaning is Shiva goes to a place called Himalaya. Here, Shivaha is the subject, which shows nominative case, means subject are always written in nominative case. Then Himalayam, it shows object, which is in vocative case. And Gacchati, if you want to divide this word, then Gaccha, which is a dhatu, or we can say verb, and Ti is the suffix which we have added to this Gaccha dhatu, which is showing that it's a present tense. Incorrect in English, sequence of words in sentence matters a lot. Consider an example, boys and girls are playing. In English, this is only the correct way to write a sentence or to understand the meaning of the sentence. But if I write boys, girls and are playing, boys, girls are playing, and so all these sentences are incorrect sentences. As there are 5 words in this sentence, so the probability of getting an incorrect sentence is 5 factorial minus 1, that is 119. This many incorrect sentences are possible. But in the case of Sanskrit, sequence of words doesn't matter. Means we can write object before subject, or we can write verb before object. That's why the chances of getting incorrect sentence becomes 0. Here are given example, balakaha balikaha cha kridanti, balikaha balakaha kridanti cha. All this will be considered as correct sentence because the sequence of words doesn't matter in Sanskrit. Huge word count. In English language, new words are always added, so it creates data storage. Data storage increases because of this. Let's see some more examples. Same expression can give different meaning in different contexts. Example, I have glasses. Here, the word glasses can mean spectacles or it can mean plain glass. Such kind of ambiguities are called as lexical ambiguities. Consider one more example. Ram saw the people with binoculars. This sentence can be interpreted as, one meaning is he saw the people with his binoculars. The other meaning can be taken as people had binoculars when Ram saw them. Such kind of ambiguities in the language are called as structural ambiguities. Similarly, different sentences can give same meaning. For example, he was born on 4th July or his birthday is 4th July. Both these sentences give same meaning to us, only the construction of sentence is different. Words of English, when stored in the database, they just serve as labels. For example, apple marketing. Here, the word apple can mean a fruit or brand, which is a brand of a company. So such ambiguities we can also see in some other languages like French, German, which are used as NLP. So why should we consider Sanskrit language? So Sanskrit language has predefined rules. It shows simple knowledge representation and it has a very strong grammar. It shows minimum deviations. It offers unique pronunciation for every word. In order to change the meaning of sentence, we have to introduce new words. We have to write the sentence in this order only: subject, verb, and subject, object, and verb. But unlike English, Sanskrit only requires addition of prefixes and suffixes to create a new word. It shows dual case and 3 numbers. In comparison to other languages, Sanskrit is highly inflected language by way of three grammatical genders like masculine, feminine, and neuter, and three numbers like singular, plural, and dual. Positional independence of words in a sentence, that is same as we can write subject, object, verb in any sequence because the position is independent. So what are the further research which we can do to consider Sanskrit as natural language processing? So some exceptions which we can say that Sanskrit language also shows some ambiguities, but they can be resolved by using fuzzy logic technique. Fuzzy logic is designed to solve problems by considering all available information, making best possible decision of the given input. Auto-finding, Panini's rule. Panini was the grammarian of Sanskrit. Auto-finding, it just means that we should try to find some technique which will enable machine to auto-discover all those 4,000 rules given by Panini. POS tagging of words unknown to trained model. POS tagging identifies what type of word or phrase is contained in a block of text. Design stopword elimination algorithm, which is helpful to reduce data storage space. Stopwords are mainly categorized under prepositions, adverbs, articles. In Sanskrit, indeclinables are words which don't change in all gender numbers cases. This helps to reduce time and data storage space complexity. This is an image which I have taken from actual research paper. In this, author has tried to create an algorithm to remove such stopwords available in Sanskrit, which will help to reduce the data storage space. So Sanskrit language is advantageous over English language. We have done a case study by taking Sanskrit language. Such things we can also do by taking some other native languages of India. Because of its unambiguous nature and less deviations, we should think of Sanskrit language for natural language processing. Thank you for your listening. If you want to ask any doubts or if you want me to explain an example of Sanskrit which I have taken, then you can ask.
It was a very nice presentation, Anushka. So Vikrant, can you give any comments regarding both Sanket's and Anushka and Asta's presentation?
Right. Am I?
Yep, you're audible.
All right. Now, I'm afraid I couldn't attend the ending part of Sanket's presentation, but as far as I've heard, it was pretty good. So, good job on that. And for both of the teams that have done today, I'm really proud that you guys used Beamer because people don't usually do that. So, I'm really happy about that. I was through this, I mean, in this presentation, the second team's presentation throughout, this is one thing that I like to say. It was good one, right? I really appreciate the topic that you've taken, and it's quite interesting to look at different languages and so on. Just one thing that I wanted to say is the reference section. Can you just share your screen again and go over to the slide where you had references?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to say it directly. Do not do this anywhere else. Okay. I mean, it's okay that you've done it here. It's your first time. Never put your references as a Google folder because that's not professional enough, right? Do you mind also? Let me just open the Google folder. I assume you've put it in the chat box, right?
Yes.
Right, let me just go over there. So the thing is, your references is supposed to tell you what you've referred to directly from, the published stuff. Now, in your Google folder, you have roughly, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 PDFs, right?
Yeah.
In your reference section, it's always a good idea to rather, cite these rather than just giving the folder. Don't put the folder link, right?
Yes.
Because when you're presenting in bigger places, people should sort of get an idea that, hey, this person's actually read these papers. Right now, if you just put a folder that is not always accessible to others, right now it's a Zoom call here, so you can just put the folder link in the chat box, and then you can ask people to check it out. But let's say you're presenting in a big conference or something, and you have like a huge audience of like 100 200 people, right? And it's not a Zoom call, right? You're standing there and the people are sitting in front of you. There you can't really share the link, right? You can maybe share the PDF later, but that's all secondary. So it's always a good idea to put your references directly with the names of the authors, the articles, and so on. And this applies for everyone who's here, who have their presentations in the coming days. Don't put it like this. Always explicitly mention the papers or articles or whatever it is that you've referred to, right? That's one thing. Otherwise, the presentation was really good, and I see that you've explored different Beamer themes, and also appreciate that as well. And great job, guys.
Yeah, we'll keep this in mind for references.
Yeah, sure, no problem. It's fine, right? I mean, this is your first time, so it's okay. But just keep this in mind for the next presentations that you do anywhere, not just Nakshatra, but anywhere, right? Even if it's your class presentation, it's always a good idea to mention them explicitly.
Yes.
Okay, Anushka, can you share your paper, research paper or review
Ye-
paper?
Yes. Just a minute.
And Asta, if you're here in the meantime, can you tell about your experience? Like, how was the project? Like, how much did you learn making this mini project? All those, yeah.
LaTeX project is really helpful. It was really interesting and I loved it. I'm surely going to recommend it to other people. I learned so many things here.
Thank you, Asta.
Thank you.
Anushka, I think what you can do is you can download the PDF and then open the PDF in Google.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. In the meantime, Anushka, can you tell like how was your experience in LaTeX course and how much did you learn in this mini project?
Yeah, it was wonderful experience, and we want to be in touch with all of you for a lifetime, I can say. And we also want to do. We want to extend this project.
Sure, you can. Yep.
Yeah.
And soon we'll be having a tribe feature in our Nakshatra community where we'll be having a dedicated focused research groups or review groups. So you can surely join. Okay, can you go through the PDF?
Yes.
Scroll down, yeah. Yeah. So audience here, do you have any comments or any doubts regarding this presentation? AI and natural language processing? Anyone? Oh, I see Sitara here. Okay, Sitara, can you give a comment?
No, I didn't want to disturb you guys. It's going on very well. I was able to listen to parts of the first as well as the second presentation, but I'm definitely going to go over the recording. Sagar, you didn't live stream it, right?
No, Sitara. There was a bit permission issue, so I recorded
Okay.
this. Yeah.
Okay. Can you just upload to YouTube tonight itself, if possible? Because
Sure.
let both the teams have immediate access to the link, and it is a documentation for them in terms of what they have worked on. So let's just upload to YouTube by tonight or tomorrow. So yeah, great job, guys. And by what I can see, you've put in a lot of thought into it. And Anushka and Asta, we can definitely take the conversation forward now that you have a fundamental understanding of what you're looking at and what you're working on. So, and I'm very happy that you've stuck to the deadline, at least by a close call. You're the first teams to present, so congratulations. And Anushka, do you want to go over some of the parts of the paper now, or maybe you can just scroll down? I'll just take a look at some of the pages.
Yeah.
You can just explain in general what each page, what you have. Yeah.
So we have classified it into two parts. First one is AI and NLP, and then why should we think of Sanskrit language? So this is what is AI and what is the future of AI. Then how NLP works, means different terms involved in the natural language processing, which we have seen just now. Then need of other native languages other than English. Then English language show different kind of ambiguities like lexical, structural, semantic, pragmatic ambiguities. Then what are the fundamentals of Sanskrit that we have written? And then Panini's grammar of Sanskrit. And we have mentioned about Rick Brick's paper. He was the person from NASA. And this all journey of Sanskrit as NLP was started from him. He published a paper in 1985, which was based on knowledge representation of English and Sanskrit. That how Sanskrit knowledge representation is better than English. So that was all about Rick Brick's paper on artificial intelligence. And then we have tried to describe what further research we can do, like logic technique to remove the ambiguities shown in the samas and sandhi, which are some terms of Sanskrit. Then auto-finding Panini's rule and POS tagging for words and stop word elimination. Yeah, that's it.
Sagar, I think she should, both the teams, they should go ahead and upload on archive, right? Because once it's public, your name will be attached to this article, but you can also start getting ideas and references from other people when you put it on archive.
Yes, I think ResearchGate is one good place. So, so I think many are from LegTech project here. So what I'll suggest is get your college ID, Google college email ID, and then using that email ID, you can create a ResearchGate account. So when you create a ResearchGate account, you will be able to upload your papers in ResearchGate, and many others will be able to see. And you can also create a DOA, and then you can share a paper as a link. So I think that's a good way. Yeah.
We will try to, guys, to our best extent, we will try to create some kind of organization account for Nakshatra. And we will just let you guys know in 2 days. If that's not possible, you can do what Sagar said. You can log in with some institution email. But we do understand that a lot of students do not have that institution email and cannot even often enter ResearchGate. So we will try from our side to, make that possible, maybe through an organization kind of account on archive. Basically, it's important to safeguard, first of all, the fact that you have done this work. But secondly, it's also important to share the knowledge you have and allow other people to come and collaborate and, share what they know. So, which is why it's important to put your work out there. Nonetheless, on Discord channel, there is a category now called open projects. And I wanted this team to be the first one who, which is considered the open project over there. So we've already put linguistics under that category. So please, continue your discussion there, because keep the discussion open, and let's have a meeting this week with the mentor that I told you about. Okay. So
Yes.
great. So just text me and tell me, Anushka, whenever you're free for this week, and I'll go ahead, and since you have this presentation ready, I'll just set up that meeting for you. Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Amazing work. Congratulations. Your presentation looks amazing. The paper, actually, if the other group is here, if I can just take a quick look at your paper as well, it'll be really good because I missed out.
Sanket, can you share your screen, Sanket?
And
share
Sakshi, please stop recording. I just wanted to have a chat with them, so you can.